Is the Caloosahatchee bad for your brain? New research is showing a possible link between diseases like Alzheimer's, ALS, and our local water.
In Your Corner investigator Warren Wright reviewing the new information that has scientists around the world thinking they're on the verge of making a connection between blue-green algae and dementia.
Researchers from Australia, Europe, and even here in Southwest Florida are all making the same connection. Blue-green algae blooms are giving off a toxic compound that, when ingested, appears to have a dramatic impact on our brain cells, causing neurons to wither and die. The fear is Lake Okeechobee could be ground zero for diseases like Alzheimer's and ALS.
I can't get over how nasty it is when you're coming up right by the rocks coming out of the lake. It's just terrible.
David Hicks loves to fish on the Caloosahatchee, but fears the water coming out of Lake Okeechobee is a toxic soup. How long have you been fishing on this river?
Since 1988.
He and his friend Willard Stone both agree when it comes to what they reel in.
I wouldn't eat a fish out of here or tell anybody else to eat one.
A number of scientists are now saying that's probably a wise decision. That's because of this. Blue-green algae blooms, or cyanobacteria, are getting more common, primarily due to all the fertilizer dumped into Lake Okeechobee, which feeds the blooms. And that algae is putting out a toxin known as BMAA, beta-N-methylaminoalanine. So how long have you been studying BMAAs?
Oh, about 10 years now.
Dr. Larry Brand from the University of Miami is an MIT graduate in marine biology. Brand has been studying the water coming out of Lake O, monitoring algae blooms and its impact on marine life in the Caloosahatchee, Indian River Lagoon, and Florida Bay.
This is our research vessel, and then we use this for conducting offshore research.
They take water samples and measure the potency of the algae blooms. So this is a mobile floating laboratory.
Correct.
Brand's data is showing year-long hotspots for cyanobacteria blooms in all three bodies of water. And tissue samples in everything from largemouth bass in the Caloosahatchee to shrimp and crabs in the Indian River Lagoon are showing high amounts of the neurotoxin BMAA. So why is that a bad thing? When a person ingests BMAA, studies show it can take up residence in the brain's neurons. When enough BMAA gets into the neuron, it can fail to function and begin to shrink. It's a similar condition observed in patients suffering from Alzheimer's and ALS. And multiple studies show those patients all have high levels of BMAA in their brain tissue. While there is a connection between BMAA and neurodegenerative diseases, scientists have yet to prove a direct cause.
So if you've got a lot of BMAA in your diet, your brain cells are going to be slowly accumulating more of this BMAA and therefore accumulating more and more of these tangled proteins.
As it bioaccumulates in the food chain, that's really bad news.
Researcher John Cassani helped collect the fish samples in the Caloosahatchee, which proved to be loaded with BMAA. Even more disturbing, autopsies of dolphins in the Indian River Lagoon. In a recent study of 5 dolphins that died for no apparent reason, they showed abnormal amounts of BMAA in brain tissue samples. Biologists noted the dolphins appeared to be confused, even getting lost.
Sometimes they swim up rivers, up into freshwater lakes, not the normal dolphin behavior. So it sounds just like an Alzheimer's patient.
When asked about BMAA, the Florida Department of Health only had this comment. BMAA is one of many possible environmental triggers to neurological diseases that is being investigated by researchers in Florida and elsewhere. There are millions of potential environmental exposures, and additional research is necessary. In the meantime, local scientists who have studied the data are all saying the same thing.
I love to fish, and I continue to fish in the Caloosahatchee, but personally, I wouldn't eat the fish.
I personally would not eat any of the seafood from those locations.
And for local fishermen?
It's just sad. It's extremely sad.
There are currently a number of studies underway examining the connection between BMAA and neurological diseases. If you go to our website, we'll list a number of journals and periodicals that explore this concern, including a video lecture from one of the researchers who says this information could even lead to a cure. Warren Wright, Fox 4, in your corner.
All right.